Hello, and welcome to today's session, Navigating uSecure. I am today's host, Elisa. Thank you for joining. I have just a few housekeeping items to go over before we get started. All lines have been muted to reduce background noise. If you experience any technical difficulties, please let us know by using the chat panel below. We will be taking questions throughout the presentation and will answer them during the last 10 to 15 minutes of today's session. After today's event, you will be receiving an email with the slides from today's presentation and the recording. At LBMC Technology Solutions, our aim is to be your team for everything tech. If you think of a technology challenge or need, please drop it in the chat, Q&A, or send us an email at info@lbmctech.com. Now, please help me welcome our presenter for today's webinar, Gerald Tomerlin. Gerald is a network engineer and cybersecurity specialist at LBMC Technology Solutions, where he contributes to the design, implementation, support, and security of IT infrastructure. With a strong background in network systems and cybersecurity, as well as commitment to delivering reliable, secure technology solutions, Gerald plays a key role in supporting clients' evolving business needs. Now, Gerald, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Alyssa. And hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today and giving us the opportunity to talk a little bit about our uSecure offering, which is something that we're really excited about, especially since it's newer and it is replacing some of the older technology that we've had before. So we are very excited to share this with you. And with that, I will get started. uSecure is a next generation human risk management solution. It's a security awareness training solution, but over time, it has been noticed by the IT cybersecurity world that the majority of our cybersecurity risks involve people, not technology. In the past, we've always thought of our technology protecting us, such as firewalls and things of that nature, to keep us safe from the outside world. That landscape has changed dramatically. And in today's cybersecurity world, we really have to focus on our users. Our users are the first line of defense we have in any type of cybersecurity risk that we face. And as you can see here with some of the numbers that we have here, 36% of all data breaches involve phishing emails, and 90% of all data breaches involve human error. So with those types of statistics, we can tell that we can no longer just stick in a firewall or isolate our LANs and things of that nature and consider ourselves safe. So uSecure is what is called a security awareness training solution that seeks to hyper-focus on the users themselves. And we will go through a little bit of that here to talk about how they do that and some of the exciting things they do. Now, security awareness training programs are not new. They've been there for a while. We used to have one before, and a lot of our clients, maybe some of you that are on here with us today, are part of that. And as the security landscape started to grow, some of these security awareness training programs no longer really kept up with a realistic view or reflection of what the real world cybersecurity landscape looked like. So with that, some of the older solutions we had presented several issues that we were always trying to overcome and trying to look past or trying to find a way around. Some of those involve things that list here on this slide, which are labor-intensive and manual management, which in today's landscape, manual anything is usually not fast enough to keep up with any type of security incident. The security awareness training material was often outdated or older. It's very limited in scope. There's only so many times we can send out a security awareness training program to tell everybody not to open an email from somebody you don't know, for example. Phishing scenarios were very limited. The training material themselves was falling behind all the real things that were going on today, such as AI or QR code type of phishing attacks and things of that nature that people are facing today. Even text messaging. We've had incidences where clients of ours have been attacked through a text message. And some of these older solutions never really grew to the point that we could train users on such attacks. And lastly, one of the things that uSecure really shines at is where most security awareness training programs, there's a one-size-fits-all approach. In other words, you created however you wanted your training to be, what you wanted to train on, and you sent it to your users. And no matter who your users were, they all got that same training. And that was really inefficient in a way that we will talk about a little bit here in a few minutes. one of the main things that pushed us to offer uSecure is how it bypasses the one size fits all approach and really hyper focuses on what your users' weaknesses are in cyber training. So the way that uSecure is different from the legacy ones, as mentioned before, it's not just a technological solution. It's considered a human risk management focused solution. In other words, it's trying to manage and decrease the level of risk that your users present to your organization. And when I say that, it's not that your users are a threat on purpose. Most of our users are not out there trying to do anything bad, but it is a threat or a risk when things happen when our users are not paying attention, things of that matter. Those are all real risks that our organizations face. So that's why they kind of label this, it's a human risk management solution. Their solutions are all automated. So there's no longer any manual ways of having to go in and do things on scheduled times and things of that nature. It just runs constantly in the background, automated, spreading things out so that your users can get the information they need. It just runs in the background, constantly protecting your organization. It also personalizes the security training to every individual user. I'll show that a little bit here in a minute, but in a nutshell, that means that when it comes time to send out a security awareness training program or a course, I may get a course this month that says, Gerald, welcome to your training on phishing. And Alyssa may get one the same month, but it's identified her as needing training on, say, physical security and how to make sure that your laptop is locked and how to make sure that people don't walk in behind you through secure doors. That is really the hyper-focused part of this that I want to show a little bit. The phishing scenarios that they use are real world. In other words, they are keeping up with the landscape today of what the attackers are using as a phish, and they are trying to create phishing simulations that reflect what is actually seen out there in the world. So, for example, some of the more popular ones that are happening right now are things such as the UPS delivery phishes and things of that nature. Simplified onboarding and user synchronization. This has been a very nice thing. Now, some other products do offer this, but as opposed to the ones that we were offering before, it extremely simplifies the fact that we can just onboard people. When we onboard them, they get automatic training for all of your new users, however, for that to look, and it continuously synchronizes with your user base. So as people leave your organization and we remove them from O365, or you onboard new people in 365, it automatically synchronizes it, which removes any manual management of who is getting what. So with that, we'll come to our first poll question before I actually go into some of the details with uSecure, and I'll give that over to Alyssa.
Thanks, Gerald. Okay, so the first poll question is, how familiar are you with the uSecure platform? The first option would be very familiar, we're already using it. Somewhat familiar, we've heard of it. Not familiar, this is new to us, or never heard of it. And I will give folks just a few seconds here to respond before we close the poll. Maybe just a few seconds more, and then I'll share the results. And it looks like all of our participants today say not at all.
Very interesting. That is very interesting. Well, we'll go forward then. Now, the hyper user focus that uSecure uses to help determine some of its training methods is what uSecure terms as their gap analysis. Whenever we onboard somebody or when they come on board with you, they are sent a very quick 10-minute security awareness survey that measures or takes a snapshot of a particular user's strengths and weaknesses in 12 different security categories. It takes all that information and puts it into a small database that's just for that user and builds a unique profile of that user's specific security awareness profile. It will then use that profile to continuously send the appropriate training to this user to constantly reinforce where their weaknesses are. Now, that gap analysis, when people are onboarded, comes in the form of a quick email. It looks like this. The user will get an email from uSecure, and all they have to do is select Take Course, and it will send them a link to log in. This is a passwordless login system. meaning you don't need to use a password. And once you hit take course, it will send an invite to your mailbox, and then you can select that link to go in and take your course. The gap analysis usually runs about 10 to 15 minutes. It's about 30 questions, so it's not that long. When it is done, the results will look like this. For this particular user, you see the scores of how well they did on their particular gap analysis. So some of the very weak components of this particular user's awareness profile is that they're pretty weak on, say, secure passwords, where they scored a 33, cloud security, public Wi-Fi security, and working remotely security. Those are the identified weak points for this user that uSecure has identified. And at the same time, the stronger scores that the user got was internet and email usage and social engineering. And you can see now how this database will use this information to set training. It's not as important to send this particular user a 5-minute training module on internet and email usage. It's probably far more important to send them a 5-minute training video on secure passwords or public Wi-Fi. So that's how this database uses it and really sets uSecure apart. One of the things that we really are excited about is offering to our clients. This is how we take the weakest part of our security, our humans and our users, and hone in on them and build them up to turn those risks into an asset. And now we have poll question number 2.
Thank you, Gerald. Okay, so the answers were not at all.
Okay, thank you, Alyssa. Once we roll out uSecure and you go into your company's portal, it gives you an overview of where you stand as far as who is taking your training and some of your security scores. So I just took a quick screenshot here of a sample of what is going on. And this is an example of that gap analysis report. You can do overall, you can do many different reports at the same time, or you can hone in on one specific training campaign at one time if you like. So as you can see here, with that gap analysis that was sent to this user, the average time taken was 3 hours. That does not mean that it took 3 hours to take the test. It means that it took 3 hours from the time that this email was sent to the users to the time it was completed. As you can see, 75% of the users have started it, 72 have completed it, and the average score is a 75. There's some other little graphics there that kind of reflect the same information. Some of the training that you have, it's not that we're just sending it out to people, but you do have ways to track who is taking the training, who is scoring high enough to pass, and who is not. So this is very good information that can be reviewed at whatever cadence that seems secure for your organization to find out how you're doing with this particular training. And poll number 3, which I think we've already done. Listen, I believe. I'm sorry.
No worries. I think some of these might have gotten switched up, and I apologize, but we're getting through it. I'm on number 3, which the question is, how personalized is your current security awareness training? And it looks like generic for all employees was the top answer.
Thank you. And that is not surprising, as that is the way the majority of security awareness training programs out there function. All right, so the Phish testing component of the security awareness training is a little different. I know in some of these programs and solutions, they're kind of combined. They would send a Phish test out, people would pass or they would fail, and then they would send a follow-up training, and then they called that security awareness training. Well, in uSecure, Phish testing is treated completely different than the actual security awareness training. The Phish testing is set up basically to send out every 4 weeks an automated Phish testing. If a user fails that particular Phish test, they do get a microlearning course to take to help them identify why they failed it and help them do better the next time. When we first rolled out Phish testing for our clients, Phish testing quarterly was the average of what all of our organizations were doing, and probably that was what the world out there at large was doing, was quarterly, sometimes even semi-annually or annually Phish testings, and they thought that that was good enough. Well, once again, in today's world, that is just not a very good cadence anymore because things are going so fast. So with uSecure, we send out a phish test every 4 weeks, and it is designed to test, train, and improve employees' real-world phishing awarenesses. Again, it keeps up with what is going on in the real world, and the real world is going to look different today than it does 4 weeks from now, and it is definitely going to look different today than it's going to look in January. Also, the way people had it configured for their organizations were we would give a contact on site a heads up that a phish test was coming, and we would give them information about what that phish test would look like. And that kind of made sense at the time, in that most of the time when their users would get the phish test, they would contact their IT support desk or whoever and say, hey, I got this funny looking email. Is this an actual phish test? And then there would be people there on site that knew that a heads up was coming and that this indeed is a phish. Another thing that happened a lot with organizations were that high-level employees, such as CEOs or vice presidents, C-level executives, things of that nature, it was very common to exclude them from phish testing. And what we have discovered, and what the security world at large has discovered, that the bad guys have realized this too. And so there is a type of phishing out there called spear phishing, where they specifically target these high-level employees, and they can get this information from LinkedIn. If I want to go in and find out who the CEO is of Acme Hardware, I can go into LinkedIn, find it, find the CEO, and then I can create an entire phish just to attack that particular CEO. And for the most part, it is far more risky that a CEO or a vice president of accounting or a CFO, if they lose their information or give up their information, their level of access that they have to your organization is far more valuable to the bad guys than, say, somebody phished me in your organization. I mean, it would be bad enough if they got my information, but I do not have the ability to send payment out to anybody or to request any kind of that activity that bad guys are really relying in today's world to pull money out and get their payoff for what it is they're trying to do. So we highly suggest that as we move into a phish testing, that we move away from that and we just let uSecure do what it does best, which is, again, automatically looking at all your users and sending out these phish testings as it deems fit. The security awareness training comes with detailed reporting. Anytime a user goes in to take a course, I told you that they take the course and then they'll get an email with a link that goes in and allows them to take this course. Once they do that, there's a place where they can click on and go see their portal. And this is what their portal would look like. And I want to talk about this a little bit. On the left, you see the user's current human risk security score based from 0 to 900. And this particular user is scoring a 550 at the moment. Their phish risk score is how they have been doing on their phishing test within the last however long, that looks like 6 months in this particular example. So a user can get a visual feedback to where they stand as their strengths and weaknesses. As users go through and they interact with the phishing and they are passing more phish tests, they're interacting and they're taking their courses and they're passing their courses, these numbers change. So as you can see on the graph, today I was scored 550, and then over the last 6 months it's gone up. That's not a good sign. If it was going down, that would be a good sign. And it talks a little bit about how I've reacted a little bit on my phishing emails. And I opened 75% of all the emails that came in that were phishing, and 1 in 4 of those I actually simulated a compromise. Also, as a convenience, on the right-hand side are a list of all training courses that the user has been enrolled in. So anytime a security training awareness program rolls out a course for a particular user, it will be listed here. And if they don't take it, it's just going to continue to build up, and they will get email reminders saying, hey, you still have, in this case, 3 different courses you need to go in and take. So this is a really good portal for people to go in and take a look at things and keep up with where they're at. You kind of look at it a little bit if people want to. There's a fancy term for it called gamification, where I can go in and I want to see how low I can get my score down. And it kind of provides a little extra incentive for me to go in and do the things correctly that I need to, and I get to watch my score go down. This information is also aggregated across all your users. So you can go in and take a look at your organization as a whole. All of your users' scores are aggregated and they're weighted towards your weakest users. So the scores of your weakest users are going to have a little more influence on your aggregate score as your strong ones. And as you can see here, this particular organization has got an average security score. So as an IT leader or a security leader or CIO, you can get a real-time view of where you stand as an organization on your security awareness compliance. And of course, people are going to want to be in the green. If you're not in the green, then you can take actions such as more training. There are manual ways above and beyond just what uSecure is doing automatically. If you feel like your users need a little extra training in something, we can manually send those out to you, which gives you options to help build your company's aggregate score. Now, I couldn't fit this whole page on one screen, so what you would see on the bottom of this is a graph, which kind of shows where your organization stands. As you can see here, your risk score for your phishing is the light green. And over time, it looks like from March 8th, 2025 to August 31st, it's gone down significantly. And again, that whole aggregate score is in blue. uBreach, it's basically their dark web component. I'll touch on that in just a little bit as we get towards the end. And then we have our fourth poll question.
Thank you, Gerald. So poll question number 4 is, would a report phishing button in Outlook improve your team's response to threats? And I will give just a few seconds for everyone to submit their response. Okay, and I'll end the poll. It looks like some people answered possibly, others answered they were unsure.
Okay, thank you. One of the reasons we selected this as a poll question, a report phish button that uSecure offers actually does two things. One, in the scenario I said earlier, where your IT department got a heads up saying, hey, this phish is coming, it's going to look like it's coming from this. And that way, people, when they have questions about whether something's a phish and they come to your help desk asking about it, you'll know. So the first reason that you would want to have a report phish button is that users no longer have to do that. If they think something is a phish, they don't have to physically reach out and ask anybody. They can just push a button and it reports this as a phish. And what will happen at that point is we can update email filters from that phishing email to help train and keep it from coming in anymore. Or this is the other part, if it is actually a test from uSecure, they're going to get a positive feedback letting them know, congratulations, you've identified that this is a phish, and it will update their score. And reporting a phish gets you a higher positive number increase than just not opening it all, because what you're telling the system is, hey, I know that this is a phish. I see what's going on. I see what it's trying to do, and I want to let the system know that this is a phish. And that's what the system is trying to do, is trying to find each individual user. And what we're hoping is that they're getting better and better about identifying particularly phish related emails. The key takeaways I want to include as we wind down a little bit is that technology is no longer sufficient for security, especially as we're going into a new world where AI is involved in a lot of the cyber attacks. Cyber insurance companies are getting more and more involved. There are more and more compliance and legal organizations that are getting involved to make sure that our different organizations are meeting certain requirements. Of all that, a lot of that stuff concerns how are you training your user base. It's great to be able to go back and show, hey, we have this particular user that clicked on this or did this. They have gone through a year's worth of cybersecurity training. They have done well. It's not because of a lack of training that this happened. Again, as you think about your cybersecurity, we should always be thinking how our users are our first and best line of defense to protect our organization. On the flip side of that, they are also more times than not, through no fault of their own, our biggest risks in cybersecurity. uSecure works to provide a cloud-based user-focused solution. And again, that combines phishing simulation, interactive training, risk analytics, and reporting. The core features that I've talked about is that they are realistic, customizable phishing campaigns. They have engaging microlearning modules, user and organization risk scoring, and automated reporting for compliance and insights. The gap analysis is specific to uSecure. Again, that is where a user can go in and it takes a very quick survey on the weaknesses and strengths that your users have in 12 different cybersecurity categories. The security scores that are provided to the users and as an aggregate as your organization are quote unquote kind of gamified, which means that they get to watch their scores move up and down over time as they are interacting with the software or with the solution. Along with that, the benefits include reduced phishing susceptibility, stronger compliance with regulations, data-driven decision-making, and enhanced employee engagement. Two other things I want to talk about that I did not include in the scope of today's discussion. They have two other types of security modules. One is called uBreach, which is a dark web scanning solution that basically runs in the background and it looks to see if any of your users have any of their corporate or their work-related emails, stolen credentials on the dark web trying to be sold. As an example, you all heard a few years ago where Target had a breach where they lost a very large amount of their customer database was stolen. And if any of your users were using their company email to log into Target, then the risk is that the bad guys, when they've stole Target's database, it's highly possible now that they've got your user's email address and password, which means they could log into your user's email address now. So with this scanning, we're constantly monitoring if there are any breaches out there on the dark web that include any of your company email addresses, and they are then reported once it's found, and then we can take action to mitigate any threat that comes to your organization, such as changing passwords, things of that nature. Another cool feature that uSecure offers is not necessarily actively trying to reduce your security score, but they have a policy module where you can upload your policies into uSecure and you can deliver your policies out to your users through the platform and track who is reading your policies, who is accepting your policies. Any policy updates of that nature are all organized and reportable inside uSecure. This is becoming more and more popular as a lot of times policies are done in many different ways. Human resources may have a few policies, your IT cybersecurity policy, maybe even some of your specific divisions have their own policies, and they're all over the place. But what they call their uPolicy module is a way where you can collect all your policies there and you can report on all the activity that's going on with those policies. I don't want to read the whole slide as I have belabored this point to the utmost already, but that is the conclusion we're looking at here. We want to reduce the likelihood that breaches happen at all. We want to strengthen your user's security culture. And again, this is not necessarily just email security. It's security such as how to properly and safely use the Wi-Fi at Starbucks, for example, and how to make sure we don't let people walk in behind us when we go into a particular door that's secured inside of our organization, how to create passwords that are better than other passwords. So it's not just email focused, it's a holistic view of the security of your organization. And the last thing that I have there is investing in human focused security awareness training is no longer optional, it's essential. You can have $1 million budget, or in some organizations, a $50 million security budget, and it only takes one user to either accidentally or on purpose from the inside basically render all that security. I don't want to say nil, but it weakens it severely. So the conclusion that I would like for everybody to take away is to be thinking of how you are investing in your users and how you're investing in them to make them more security conscious, to reduce the risk that they have towards your company, and increasing the asset and ability of them to help you protect your company. And with that, I'll turn this back over to Lisa.
Thank you, Gerald. We'll begin our Q&A live. If anyone has further questions about anything that Gerald shared today, but we don't get to your question, feel free to reach out to us at info@lbmctech.com. Gerald, we do have a question or two here. The first question I'll pitch to you is, what are the most common gaps in employee security awareness that uSecure helps identify and address?
I would say the biggest gaps that it helps identify would be the ability to identify a legitimate phish email coming in that's being attacked. There are so many coming in now. We have seen incidences where a phish has come in and a user has clicked on that particular phish and introduced ransomware into the company. I would say that's probably the biggest gap. We could never make it zero, but those are devastating attacks, which can be mitigated and reduced if our employees and our users, myself included, become very hyper vigilant in being able to see what might be a very suspicious email and how to react when we have a very suspicious email. And I won't even say that. It doesn't even have to be very suspicious, because we should really be suspicious of all emails. We can no longer just kind of click through our emails and Outlook during the day, respond to this, do that, just because it looks like it's coming from somebody that I know. The biggest gap is we need to retrain our users into realizing and understanding the true danger that a phishing email has to us. And not only for our organizations, it's good for their personal too. Everybody has emails at their house. The same thing can happen to our users at home. We want our users to be educated, not just for our organization, but for their own sake. We don't want their home banking information compromised through the same types of attacks.
Thank you, Gerald. Maybe a follow-up question to that answer is, how can personalized phishing simulations improve user behavior compared to generic training?
There might be a little bit misunderstanding here. The phishing training itself is not personalized. There isn't a one size fits all for the phishing. There isn't one, I'm going to send a UPS training to Alyssa. I'm going to send an Adobe login or a Microsoft login compromised phish to Gerald. Those are random. What is focused is the security training component. So if Alyssa has a very strong understanding of phishing, it probably won't send her an actual training course designed to help her understand phishing. It's going to work to identify where she's weak at. So again, if maybe she failed or she did not do so well on how to use the public Wi-Fi for work, it will send her a training course to help train her to understand the dangers of public Wi-Fi. So the hyper-focused targeted training only happens with the actual learning courses, whereas the phishing, there is really no focus per user weaknesses, as they're just random. They try to get harder. If it sent Elisa a couple of easy ones last week and she passed them, it will send her a little harder one later. It does that in the background using AI, but it's not targeted in the phishing part.
Okay, thank you, Gerald. Just a couple more questions have come in. The next one is, what are the risks of excluding executives from phishing simulations and awareness training?
The biggest risk there is, again, our executives and our C-level executives have the most access and they have the most authority within the company. Bad guys know this. Bad guys know that if I receive an email from my boss or from my CEO asking me to do something, it's going to automatically generate a sense of urgency on my part, thinking I have to get something done. So the bad guys, now that they know this, they are able to find out the email addresses for executives, and they are attacking the executives very often. They're even using things that we didn't cover today, AI attacks and voice attacks, all kinds of different, very highly sophisticated phishing attacks. Once they can get an executive's credentials or get an executive compromised in any way, there is an automatic exponential threat to your company compared to just say a help desk person or just a general line worker. Those are bad enough, especially when you consider ransomware implications. But the executives is where all the power lies inside of an organization. And you definitely do not want the bad guys to have that type of power compromised in your organization. A lot of times the executives don't want to be bothered with it. Understandable, it gets in their way, and they have specifically asked to be excluded before, and they are the boss. I understand that as well, but they should be made aware of just how susceptible they are and how much of a risk their credentials can be in the wrong hands.
All good points. Thank you again, Gerald. So the last question for today is, what are the biggest misconceptions about phishing simulations and their impact on user performance?
A lot of times people will think that phish testing gets in the way and that people don't have time to go through a phish testing and they don't have time to take the remediation course if they failed it. It gets in the way of their day-to-day productivity. And the bottom line is that's true. It does take a little time, but it is an investment. I think the biggest misconception is that the time that it takes away from their daily productivity is a detriment to the company, when it should be looked as it's actually an asset to the company and it is an investment of time and resources into better securing your company.
That makes sense. So we're going to close out today's webinar. We hope this webinar on navigating uSecure, a modern cybersecurity awareness training tool, has been informative and valuable to everyone who joined us today. Again, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in the future. If you have any further questions or need guidance on how to get started, our team is always available to support and assist you.